Hello and welcome back to the Tottenham Transfer Roundup shows here on Matt Hayes' Tottenham blog, as we have, as I think will be a regular thing throughout this window, a lot of Serie A links to get through with players such as Dusan Vlahovic, Franck Kessie, Marcelo Brozovic, Stefan de Vrij and Matthias de Ligt, but also looking at a link outside of the Serie A, which is one we actually spoke about on the channel a couple of weeks ago in Julian Alvarez of River Plate. We'll also look at potential January departures for Joe Rhoden and Steven Bergwein, as well as a few smaller stories on the likes of Luka Modric, Jack Clark, Dylan Markande, Charlie Sayers, Lovren Meyer, Harry Kane and Eric Lamela. Before I do dive into that, if you are new to the channel, do make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more transfer shows all throughout December and January, and also make sure to hit that like button on the stream if you are looking forward to it. And we may as well dive straight into things. And as you can see just below me there, Gianluca Di Marzio has been talking about AC Milan midfielder Franck Kessie, who I'm sure we're all very familiar with at this point, with links rumbling right through the summer and continuing into the latter stages of this year as well. And what Gianluca Di Marzio has had to say is essentially Franck Kessie could still be an option for Tottenham, however, not in January. And that's the kind of feeling I've had on this move throughout the last couple of months as well, that if Tottenham are really going to make a move for Franck Kessie, it will more than likely be on a free move next summer. Now, it is worth noting that Tottenham can get that move done in January under the Bosman ruling. Kessie, a player of over 23 years of age and less than 6 months left on his contract, other European clubs do then have the right to go in and negotiate a pre-contract agreement with him, which I personally feel is kind of where Tottenham will go with on this one, because AC Milan at the moment are second in the Serie A, just 3 points behind leaders Napoli, and a player like Franck Kessie, who's so important for them in the middle of the park, and also, as he's shown in recent weeks, he can also be a bit more versatile and play in centre back. I think it was the derby against Inter Milan where he did so. He's an extremely important player for AC Milan, and I was speaking to David, the Irish Hotspur, on this last week, and he was saying surely they take the 5-10 million 6 months in advance in order just to get something out of the deal. But it's been so long since AC Milan have won that title that I think it's worth 5 or 10 million for them to keep a player of the importance of Franck Kessie for that extra couple of months to try and really get that a proper push for the title. Like I said, only 3 points behind Napoli, with a team like Juventus not up to scratch as they haven't been for the last couple of years, and Inter Milan also not pulling away like they did last year. It's a very good opportunity for AC Milan to grab that title, and it makes sense for them to hold on to their players such as Franck Kessie. Moving across the city of Milan to their rivals Inter, Gianluca Di Marzio has also said that Marcelo Brozovic and Stefan de Vrij are unlikely for Tottenham, as the club look to target more top young players for their project. And this is a bit of an interesting one from Di Marzio, because there have been a few reports, granted from less reliable journalists, that Tottenham are going to aim for players in around the 29-30 years of age, where they have that experience of being at the top level for 5, 6, 7 years, but also have a couple of years left to try and, left at the top level. And that is essentially what Tottenham need. And with some reports suggesting they're going to go for that sort of balance, but now Di Marzio saying we want top young players. It's interesting seeing those conflicting reports, but it also kind of leads me to question what really is the project of Tottenham right now, because Conte can easily be looked at as a short-term manager, and while I don't think that's an entirely fair reflection on what he has done in his career, there's different reasons why he's left clubs in short times. I do think this is a very different job for Antonio Conte than what he's used to, but he's viewing it as even more different than it should be, if that makes any sense to anybody else out there. But it will be interesting to see what kind of path Tottenham take as they look to manoeuvre the first first transfer window under Antonio Conte. And we'll get into your questions later on, and I do have a few on how likely Conte is to stay at Tottenham if the transfer window doesn't go to plan. Yassine and James, good to see you in the live chat. Golden Cock, loving the comments there as well. Adam, John of the Cheese Room, good to see you all as well. Niall and Red Rogue Rebel, good to see you in the live chat. Football Insider has been commenting on Stefan de Vrij and another centre-back that we mentioned on the top of the show in Matthias de Ligt of Juventus. And they have said Antonio Conte wants Tottenham to sign de Vrij and de Ligt in January. Inter value de Vrij at £40 million, while Juventus wants £68.5 million for de Ligt. And look, it's really difficult to decipher which of these links are actual genuine links and which aren't, because you have this situation where it's easy for these to be lazy links because of the relationship between Antonio Conte, Paratici, and the Serie A. They all have some Paratici has some incredible links left over in the Serie A, and of course Antonio Conte having just left Inter Milan. It's really easy to make up stories like that and for them to be believable. But under the same reasoning, it makes sense that they be targeting those players because Peratti can get those deals on a little bit easier. Conte has the relationship with some players there. So I'm finding it quite difficult to really decipher which of these are genuine. Football Insider as a source, if they're not talking EFL or Leeds, I completely disregard them and I completely ignore them. But it's an interesting point there to bring up on two centre-backs that are being mentioned by other sources as well. Cody, good to see you in the live chat, says, how do you think the Peratti investigation will impact our ability to do business? And this is a really interesting one that I will be touching on a little bit later, but just to answer your question, I don't think it will impact our business at all, to be perfectly honest, and I feel like there's two different reasons for that. One is the investigation is really on Juventus as a football club rather than Peratti individually. I know a few Italian papers named Peratti, Nedved and Agnelli, but the investigation is on Juventus. So I think he is at the moment still a little bit separated from that. But also, if he changes things around, if he starts, not buying in these players or not being as active in the market, well, then there may be a thing of why is he acting different? And that may be me looking into it a bit too much, but I don't think that will affect anything. But we will talk more about those investigations a little later in the show. On De Vrij, he seems like someone that could be the perfect target for Tottenham, the perfect demographic, the perfect experience, the perfect winning mentality and all that. And £40 million from Inter Milan, if that's what they want, I think that's a deal that Tottenham should really go for. And he's a player that I would like to see come into the club. As I've said the whole way through, if I had my pick of centre-backs from Inter Milan, I would still go with Alessandro Bastoni, but I can see why De Vrij is also a very good option. And on Matthijs de Ligt, £68.5 million, he hasn't really been living up to expectations since he signed for Juventus from Ajax was it 2019, 2 years ago at this point. I'm not quite sure that's one that we should pursue for £68.5 million as well. It's probably out of our price range, which may be a blessing in disguise. Brian Daigle, good to see you in the live chat. Hope you're well. Dark Sung G with the super chat, thanks a million for that. Always popping in with supporting the channel, I do appreciate it. Says, if we can get Kim Min-jae, would you be happy? I suppose I would be. Kim Min-jae is a player that we've spoken about a bit back when he was with Beijing Guan. If I'm not mistaken, he's gone to Fenerbahce now. And I think he would be a good signing and he'd bring certain attributes into that defence that I do think we need. But I think we're in a situation now where we should probably be aiming for higher players. So if we got Kim Min-jae, I wouldn't be unhappy with signing him, but I'd perhaps be unhappy with not signing a better player, if that makes sense. I would be happy with him, but I think there are better options out there for us now that we can pursue because of the people we have at our club. Moving back into the midfield, Calcio Mercato and Football Italia have said that Tottenham are interested, and this is a link that we always have, Tottenham are interested in signing Roma midfielder Nicolo Zaniolo, as a club has put a hold on talks of him signing a new contract. And look, Zaniolo, there's no doubt about it, is an incredibly talented player. He's an incredibly talented player with a lot of potential, but he's had 2 ACL injuries in the last couple of years, and that typically isn't an injury that goes away. It's a recurring injury. Like I said, he's had 2. Mary Demiral, a centre-back we were linked to in the summer that, of course, ended up being pivotal in our signing of Christian Romero. He also had ACL injuries, and that, I think, is why Juventus were not keen to let him go, but they weren't struggling to keep him. They were happy to get their money in there for him. And I think Zaniolo, depending on the price, would be a very risky purchase. And now, look, if he is ending talks with the contract, I'm not entirely sure how long is left on that contract for him. But if we can get him for cheap or on a free, go for it. But if we're paying a little bit of money, I'm not sure it's one that's really worth taking. Paul with the €5 super chat. Paul, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Says, what a colossal mistake it will be if we fail to get Kessie in January. When even... I'm not quite sure what you're trying to say, but everyone knows we're crying out for a player like him. Yeah, we certainly are crying out for a player like him, and I agree that it would be a very good deal to get done in the summer or in January, and going that extra 6 months without a player like him could be difficult for us to deal with within the Premier League. I think if we don't get him, it's not really our choice. It will be AC Milan's, because they, like I mentioned at the top of the show, they can afford to lose out on 5 or 10 million to keep him for the rest of the season. But if it ends up being, if we're offering 10 and AC Milan want 12 or something like that, well, then you can question Tottenham's commitment to the deal and how much they actually want to get it over the line. But I think Kessie could be an important one for us in January. Thank you again for the super chat. Martin says, cheeky bid for Messi Lingard. Look, if we got him on loan for 6 months, I wouldn't say no to that. And that's mainly based on his form at West Ham last season. I wouldn't entirely be opposed to bringing in Jesse Lingard, but yeah, I think there are better options out there as well. On Dusan Vlahovic, as you can see there in the bottom of the screen, it's Corriere dello Sport in Italy that are reporting Fiorentina will be open to sell Spurs target Dusan Vlahovic for €40 million in the summer. And that is because his contract expires in the summer of 2023. So as he moves into the final 12 months of his deal with the Italian club, they would be willing to slash that price from what has been a €70 million asking price for the last summer, and seemingly going into this January transfer window as well. I think my feelings in this deal are very different to the majority of the Spurs fan base. And look, I'd love to see him at Tottenham. He's a very talented player. He scores goals for fun. But for 70 million, for 40 million, I just don't think it's a deal that's worth going for. There seems to be a crazy trend in the last decade or so where these players do well in Europe and English clubs just splash the cash and just assume he will be incredible in the Premier League as well. And it doesn't always work out that way. I would argue for Tottenham, it rarely works out that way. And I do think there are other clubs that would be more enticing to Dusan Vlahovic. If you're looking at Manchester City, who are apparently interested as well, and I'd be very surprised if the top clubs in Italy, like Juventus and Inter Milan, weren't interested. Inter, of course, losing Lukaku over the summer. I know they signed was it Joaquin Correa and another striker, but still a like-for-like replacement of Lukaku with Vlahovic. I think would be a good deal for them, and Juventus, with all their struggles, losing Ronaldo as well, they could do with a player like him who has been proven to know how to put the ball in the back of an Italian net. And like I said, there's no guarantee that will transfer to a successful Premier League career for him. But I do see the talent, and I do see why we'd be so keen to get him in. Julian Alvarez, like I mentioned, a player that we spoke about on the channel a couple of weeks ago, and I will play a clip for you very shortly about the player. But Gianluigi Longari in the last couple of days has said that Tottenham are one of many clubs interested in signing River Plate forward Julian Alvarez. Basically, the big guns all across Europe are interested in signing him as well. He's putting away some incredible numbers in the Argentinian league. It's something like 15 goals and 6 assists in his last 9 games. I put up on Twitter, but I'm pretty sure that's an accurate stat. And look, he's scoring for fun. And I'll actually play the clip now because it's very interesting. I think a lot of concerns that you may have with him playing in Argentina, I think are quashed by what Alex, the Euro expert, had to say in this channel a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, 20 games, and he's got 20 goals and assists in that time. 15 goals, okay. 5 assists, playing sort of a striker and sort of moving to the left, mainly up front, completing over two dribbles per 90. And the instant counter to that is, it's the Argentina League. How do we know how good that is? Well, there are some answers to that, and this is where you get the true learning on the Matt Hayes Tottenham Blog channel. Now, there's been some analysis into ranking global leagues, and the Argentina League goes a lot higher than you think. It's actually ranked in the top 10, above the Portuguese league and slightly below Ligue 1. I think really the thing that suffers in Argentina is a lack of quality coaching. But guess who Julian Alvarez's coaches? It's Marcelo Gallardo at River Plate. So
there we go.
You've got that answer sorted. And I think this isn't a player running hot. I'm not even sure I've mentioned his age. He's 21 years old. He's only really blowing up now. And it's not a case of running hot, in my opinion. I mean, he's averaging just over 3 shots per game. For context, I was reading a piece by Sam Maguire the other day, who's a well-known analyst, and he said that players who are averaging over 4 shots in like lower leagues and scoring a lot of goals, you should probably ignore, because you can imagine their goals are going to come down. Alvarez instead, he's in the right sort of ballpark and hasn't scored any penalties in those number of goals as well. So not the Vlahovic effect.
So look, some very high praise there from Alex. Make sure to check him out on Twitter as always at EuroExpert_. Incredible analysis of almost any player you could possibly want. But some very high praise there. And Alvarez just, I think, is one of the, maybe not him particularly, but that sort of demographic of player is one that I think could be the perfect way to find a backup striker to Harry Kane, because we tried it with Carlos Vinicius and it didn't work out for whatever reason. But a younger player who's banging the goals in I'd say a second-rate league, wanting to get to a top 5 European league, the Premier League is always going to be enticing to players like that. I think he could be the perfect demographic, and with those numbers and with the TYC Sports also reporting that he has a €20 million release clause, that could be a very clever deal. But like I said, we do face competition from a lot of teams around Europe, a lot of big teams as well, which could be the biggest stumbling block that we face if our interest in that player is indeed genuine. Adrian is asking about Peratti from Torino. And this is one that I think it was not last summer, but the one before that, where the real links were there for Peratti when we ended up signing Carlos Vinicius. Personally, I'm a fan of him. I maybe in the same bracket as Dusan Vlahovic, but on a much lesser scale, and that he's doing well in the Serie A, but I'm not sure that talent would transmit perfectly to the Premier League. And I've said it many times before that I think there's a reason he's still at Torino. With all due respect to Torino, a player of his quality who has been getting a lot of appearances with the Italian national side recently and has always been attracting interest. I think if the talent was genuine and if the potential was as high as people have thought in the past, well then maybe he wouldn't still be with Torino. But maybe it will take a move away from the club for him to prove himself one way or the other. But I wouldn't be too happy with him at Spurs as an option right now. Killian Kenny, great to see you in the live chat, my friend. Hope you're keeping well. Show Me the Light says, are there any clubs interested in Dele Alli, including amateur Sunday pub teams? And Adam joined the thing there at the side, Dele Alli to Rangers 5-1. There haven't really been any links with Dele Alli away from Tottenham at the moment, and I don't think there will be this January. I put that up there at the side, the odds for his next club, or his club after January, because they were available, really. But I think Ndombele and Alli are two players that Conte will try and get the best out of, and he's not going to give up on them after 2 months, as much as I think the performance against NS Mora on Thursday night may be enough to say that Dele Alli won't make it at Tottenham. I don't think Antonio Conte will give up on him that easily. So I will be surprised if Dele Alli does move on in the January transfer window. Adrian as well saying, what about Damsgaard, Kulusevski and Nandes? Look, all players that we were linked to over the summer, all players that I think we will be linked to again. Damsgaard would be my favourite choice out of those, but at the moment there's no links, there's no genuine reports that Tottenham are looking to sign those players. But definitely ones to keep an eye on as we as we come closer to the January window. Excuse me. On to a few departures, and Alistair Gold has been talking about centre-back Joe Rhoden, who Tottenham of course signed from Swansea a couple of years back, and he said that Joe Rhoden is understood to be open to a loan move in January in order to get more time on the pitch, but that may depend on which centre-backs Tottenham bring in the January window, particularly if the injury to Christian Romero is proven to be serious, and there are concerns within the club about that injury for Romero. Conte said it himself, it's serious, and they're awaiting a second scan to see just how long he will be out for. But a bad hamstring injury could be 2-3 months, which is a massive, massive problem for Tottenham, looking at the way we played defensively with Romero, who was our best centre-back. Without him, and you're looking at a consistent back three of Sanchez, Dyer and Davis, well then Tottenham need to invest in centre-backs in January. And the fact that Rhoden isn't getting into that team, or may not get into that team consistently, could be the reason that he's looking for a loan move away. Because if he's not trusted to get in over one of those three, you can see why he's maybe thinking Tottenham isn't a place for him long term. But a loan move may not be the worst thing for him. It's certainly better than him sitting on the bench, or not even getting to the bench with our Premier League games every week. Kane says losing Rhoden would be silly. Give him a start. Look, he deserves a chance. Robert, they're making a point. Norman means Botman. Great for the left side for 3 and 4 at the back. A testimonial to his impact after his injury in October. Lille have been dropping points. Definitely a very important player for Lille last year as well, and formed a very unlikely but very effective partnership with Jose Font at the back for Lille last year. Another potential departure is Steven Bergwein, and the Telegraph in the Netherlands are saying that Ajax are working on a deal to sign Steven Bergwein in January. The Dutch champions want him to replace David Neres, who they're hoping to sell. And look, I'd say first of all, swap deal for David Neres, and I think we'd take that. But it's a link that was there in the summer. It was the Telegraph as well saying Ajax wanted Steven Bergwein, and I feel there was an air of caution about that as to whether or not Bergwijn would go back to the Netherlands to play with the rivals of the team that we signed him from, of course, PSV Eindhoven. But Bergwijn not getting his chances at Tottenham. And I feel within that front three, with players like Steven Bergwijn, Lucas Moura, Eric Lamela, of course, in the summer, I think Bergwijn is one that we should probably try and keep the most, because he hasn't had as much chances and he's the youngest and still has a lot of developing to do. But if we're going to be switching to a 3-4-1-2, which I hope we do in the latter stages of this season and going forward on a more permanent basis, there's no real place for Bergwijn in that team, because he doesn't have the effect that Lucas Moura has in the central areas, and that's my biggest concern there with him. But we'll have to wait and see how it develops, and we'll have to wait and see what chances he gets under Antonio Conte. There haven't been many so far. Chris, good to see you in the live chat. Thanks for tuning in. Just to touch on a few smaller stories, I always like to add these in, either stories from smaller sources or less reliable sources, or just funny ones. Super Deporta España have felt the need to clarify that Luka Modric is not interested in a move to Tottenham if he leaves Real Madrid next summer. I think anybody could have told you that. Mundo Deportivo in Spain are talking about Bryan Gil. And Adrian, that lover Moyer will actually mention him in a second. Mundo Deportivo say Bryan Gil has the profile that Barcelona are looking for. He also has little prominence at his club, making a loan deal not impossible. And look, there was interest from Bryan Gil from Barcelona and Real Madrid when he was at Eibar and Sevilla. So it's not particularly far-fetched that Barcelona want him. But on a loan deal, I think that's a very small club thing for Barcelona to do. With all their struggles now, I still don't think they would stoop that low to loan a fringe player from a struggling Premier League club. But let's see how it plays out. Football League World are saying that Barnsley, Middlesbrough and Sheffield United are interested in loaning Jack Clarke until the end of the season. They've also said that Spurs are also ready to loan out Dylan Markande, with 4 Championship clubs interested. And this brings up an interesting point that I'll touch on as well when we get to the questions on Twitter about young players and their chances under Antonio Conte. But Jack Clarke and Dylan Markande potentially being loaned out in January. Echo Sport and Lily White Rose on Twitter have said that, or in different ways, have said that 17-year-old left-back Charlie Sayers, formerly of Southend United, is currently on trial at Tottenham Hotspur, and Sayers actually started for the under-18s at the weekend. I can't remember what the result was, but he made his debut for Southend this season. He's been a regular feature in their National League side. They are struggling in their battle against relegation at the moment, but for a 17-year-old to get into that team as consistently as he has, there has to be a little bit of quality there, and he is now on trial in the Tottenham youth setup. And I was speaking to Lily White Rose about this on Saturday, and he made the point that it could be Tottenham's replacement for Dennis Serkin, who of course joined Sunderland in the summer. Finally, as Adrian mentioned there, Homme du Match, French source, have said that Tottenham are currently the front runners in the race to sign Stade Rennais midfielder Lovro Majer. Majer is a 23-year-old Croatian midfielder who was featured quite heavily for Rennes this season, having been bought from Dinamo Zagreb towards the end of the summer transfer window. He's made 3 appearances in the Conference League, of course in Tottenham's group, but he did miss the game against Tottenham, the 2-2 draw in France earlier last month. An exciting player, a goal-scoring midfielder. I think 23 appearances with 6 goals in all competitions this season. Want to keep an eye on there. It's an interesting link, and one that I wouldn't be entirely opposed to. Regard to some awards for Tottenham players, Harry Kane has ranked 23rd in the 2021 Ballon d'Or, which Lionel Messi is heavily expected to win tonight. And also Eric Lamela has been shortlisted for the 2021 Puskas Award for that Rabona against Arsenal in the latter stages of last season. Of course, Tottenham player is the current holder of that award, with Heung-min Son picking it up last year for his incredible solo goal against Burnley at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And speaking of Burnley, I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories going around about the postponement yesterday, but it's very important for Tottenham when that game is rescheduled, because I think of 9 games in December already. It can't be then, because we've Conference League games, we've midweek Premier League games, of course Brentford this Thursday, and we also have that Carabao Cup quarter-final against West Ham. Then in January you have FA Cup, and it seems as though the last week of January or first week of February is when that game will be rescheduled for, but hopefully we get confirmation on that sooner rather than later. Paul with the €5 super chat, thank you so much for that, says there are 11 players not good enough in the first squad that need to go. Doherty, Rhoden among them, Sessegnon, Dele, Bergwein, Galini, Tanganga and Ndombele. Look, there's definitely a lot of players that need to be shipped out of this Tottenham squad, and I agree with the majority that you have there. I think the likes of Doherty, Sessegnon, Dele are in everybody's list. With Pierluigi Galini, I do see where the concerns are coming from, and I had these concerns from watching his highlights at Atalanta and speaking to the Euro expert about him as well. He's not good at saving shots as much as you want your keeper to be, and that sounds a bizarre thing, but even his best saves that I saw in his highlights, they weren't the most impressive saves in the world. A lot of them were just closing down space really well, or maybe just dealing with the second ball really well. But in terms of plucking these ones out of the top corner, like we've come accustomed to seeing with Hugo Lloris, it's not really part of his repertoire, and that is a concern. But as a second choice goalkeeper, I don't think we're going to get many better out there, because you have to remember he's a Champions League goalkeeper. He's played in the Champions League consistently for Atalanta in the last couple of seasons, and hopefully when if he does get a bit more consistent game time, he will become better. I wouldn't give up on him just yet, and with Ndombele as well, it may be me just clutching at straws, but he's had so many different managers, so many different styles, in what is already a difficult adjustment for him to make, moving to London and moving to Tottenham. I'm still holding out hope for him, but that is always quickly fading. We're going to jump onto Twitter and take a few questions. As always for these transfer shows, if you do want to tweet me, use the hashtag AskMattHayes, and we'll take some of your tweets there. Good to see a few of them coming in today. Laura Shupak has said, are some summer centre-back targets also in the conversation? such as Jules Koundé, Torres, and Lacroix. Haven't heard anything about it since the summer, and there hasn't been anything really because I feel Tottenham have taken a massive step back and are going to entirely restructure their scouting process and who they want to bring in, because Peratti with those signings in the summer was trying to make them for a Nuno team. A Conte team is very, very different. And I think players like Koundé and maybe Lacroix could be in there as well. But I wouldn't be surprised to see some very different targets. As we're mentioning, those Serie A centre-backs in Stefan de Vrij and Matthijs de Ligt, they may be more heavily linked this summer. But I feel over the next couple of weeks, you'll really start to see what sort of targets Tottenham have, because it doesn't seem as though Conte has actually spoken much to the board about players he wants to bring in. But after that game against Mora, he said it himself, we're going to be having these conversations. And I think we will start to get a few leaks from the club about who they may want to bring in. Neuer is the GOAT, hashtag Levy out, says, hi Matt, are you actually worried that Conte might quit? Because I don't see how we win something. There's simply so much to do in the transfer window. Conte does not want to wait so much to win. I don't think winning or not winning will be a decisive factor in Conte if he does decide to leave. It will be money and transfers. That's what matters to him the most. He won the Serie A with Inter Milan last season, and because the money wasn't promised and they couldn't assure him they hold on to their best players, he walked. And I respect that, because a manager of his quality who's just won them their first league title in 11 years, give him what he wants. It's as simple as that. I am worried that Conte will walk. I don't think it'll be after the January window, and I don't think it'll be after the summer window if things don't go to plan there. But long term, well, maybe medium term, if things aren't going well with Tottenham and Conte, I do think it'll be Conte to end that relationship rather than Tottenham. So there's definitely a concern there about Conte leaving. The next question, a bit of a joke here. Adam Noonan says, do you see the best player at Spurs, in brackets Alfie Devine, getting a chance this season? Now, Adam is a bit of a Wigan fan. But I do think that brings up a very important point, like I mentioned a second ago, and that is with regards to young players getting a chance at Tottenham. We mentioned Jack Clarke and Dylan Marconde and Joe Rodon maybe being loaned out, and these are the type of players that would expect to get their opportunity in the Conference League. And we were hoping earlier in the season they could get 6 games in the group stage, and he's there. No joke, it's a joke. Cheers for tuning in, Adam. He said, we were thinking with those players, they get their chance in the Conference League, because a team like Tottenham in a competition like that, which is meant for the minnows of European football to actually get their chance on a European stage, well, that's where we want to play those players. And Alfie Devine, our youngest goal scorer in our history, scoring that goal against Marine in the FA Cup last year, still only 16 years of age. What an opportunity that is for a player like him to go out and play on the European stage, play with people watching. And we've ended up playing our first team and we still can't top the group. And that is embarrassing. And players like Devine, Clarke, Marconde, Rhoden, Maxime Pascazzi, who had a very good pre-season as well, they'll kind of be questioning when they're going to get their chance at the club. And Antonio Conte, regardless of whether or not he's enjoyed using young players in the past, well, he just may not be able to do that now, because the team at Tottenham isn't good enough. And he said that himself. He said the level of Tottenham is not so high now, and he's absolutely spot on. And you'd be worried for the young players at Tottenham and what sort of a chance they're going to get in the next 1, 2, 3 years. I would argue more so than I would have been when Jose Mourinho was in charge, which is upsetting to say, but I think I'd rather sacrifice 1 or 2 years of youth than maybe go on and win a trophy under Conte than what happened with Jose Mourinho. DAC asks, are you going to talk about any of the right wing or attacking mid potential transfers? Would love to hear about Pedro Gonçalves and Nkunku, Noni Madueke. We're not going to talk about those today. I did a stream a couple of weeks back with Euro Expert where we kind of went through each position and looked at different players that could be a good option for Tottenham. So if you do want to go back and watch that, I highly recommend it. Like I said, Alex is a ball of knowledge for all European football, and even with players like Julian Alvarez in the Argentinian league. But we will, when links surface, we will be talking about them a lot. We will be analysing these players, and hopefully we'll have Alex back on in a couple of weeks to take more suggestions from you to players that we could analyse there as well. Timmy says, Conte would absolutely walk end of January or early February if he doesn't approve of the window. So what do you honestly think we will do in January? Hope the 2 Italians are ruthless. My dream is Vlahovic done in January, even if, say, loan back to beat the summer bid war. And that's a good point in terms of some signings that we can make. But when the difference in January in the summer for Vlahovic is £30 million from 70 to 40, I can't imagine Daniel Levy would pay that just to avoid a bidding war. And like I said, I don't think we will get Dusan Vlahovic, but I would expect and really think that we absolutely need 3 or 4 signings in the January window, and it's really difficult to do because, first of all, every club knows the desperation of Tottenham. They know how much we need players, especially for defenders, and I think any defender we pursue will have 5 or 10 million added onto their price because we are so desperate for defenders. And there could be a little bit of PR from Tottenham in not really revealing the severity of Christian Romero's injury if it does end up being serious. And that could have started already with Conte saying, oh, we'll wait for the second scan, we'll see what's happening. But it's going to be more difficult than ever for Tottenham to get deals done. Now, the bonus is that this is the first January window where Steve Hitchen isn't leading our recruitment. The man who famously said, I hate the January transfer window, which kind of sums up Tottenham in the last 10-15 years. But I don't think we're going to be able to get in as many players as we need, and this season could really be damage limitation, and getting back into the Europa League could be best case scenario for this season, but we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. It probably does depend on departures as much as it depends on departures how many players we can bring in. And while it seems easy to say get rid of Winks, get rid of Dele, get rid of Bergwein, get rid of this, get rid of that, there's not many players out there, or not many teams out there who'll be looking at those players and think, yeah, that's what we need. And that's the biggest concern that we have in terms of trying to let players go in the coming January window. But look, like I said, we're going to be talking every single one of these transfers on the channel all throughout the next couple of months. We've got 260 people watching live right now and only 67 likes. So please do smash that like button if you haven't already. It helps push these streams out to more and more people, and we get more conversations, more interaction in the chat, and a lot more player recommendations for us to discuss on the channel as Tottenham try and get back to any sort of competitive level with a very busy January transfer window. Do make sure to subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't already, for more of these transfer stuff, for more on the on the pitch activity at Tottenham as well. Thank you everyone who has tuned in. Over 1,000 people tuning in over the last 32 or so minutes. If you do want to see me, I'll be on the Just Joe Football Show at 8 PM doing a Premier League review and preview for the weekend and next week. So we will be talking Tottenham, the postponement against Burnley yesterday, and the upcoming fixture against Brentford on Thursday. So please do tune in there. I'll be sharing out a link on my Twitter if you want to follow me there at Matt Hayes THFC and have a bit of a conversation later about Tottenham. But for now, if I can remember where to turn off my camera. As always, thank you so much for watching.